There are truths that cannot be burned at the stake. There are flames that are not extinguished by dogma nor buried by time. They are the truths of the soul, and they are transmitted, not in books that can be destroyed, but in whispers, from heart to heart, across the centuries. This audiobook is that unquenchable torch, the legacy of those who, like Giordano Bruno, dared to look beyond the veil and paid the price for their vision, but not before ensuring that the flame was passed to the next hand ready to receive it. You have not arrived here by chance. You have been guided by a yearning in your own soul, by that persistent feeling that the life you live is not the whole story. You have felt the pull of an invisible map, the echo of a power you know resides in you, but which you have not known how to name. This knowledge is not sought, it finds you. And it only does so when you are at the exact threshold where the pain of remaining asleep becomes greater than the fear of waking up. What you are about to hear is not a collection of theories. It is a journey of initiation, a descent into the depths of your own being, following in the footsteps of those who have already walked through the fire of self-discovery. Together we will explore the 10 revelations that transform a victim of reality into its creator. You will discover that your life is a mirror, that your fears are inherited voices, that your shadow is your greatest ally. You will learn that the void is not the end, but the womb of creation, and that your purest desire is the compass of the universe. This is not a path to accumulate more information. It is a path to unlearn, to let go, to empty yourself, and thus to be able to embody the truth that has always lived within you. The sacrifice of those who came before served a purpose. It served for this torch to reach your hands, so that you may no longer live asleep. Chapter 1. The Night of the Mirror. We have all known this night in one form or another. It is the night of the soul when you find yourself alone, feverish, not necessarily in body, but in spirit. It is the moment when the old maps you used to navigate life no longer serve, when the old certainties you relied on have crumbled like pillars of sand. It is the financial crisis that brings you to your knees, the loss of a loved one that tears the fabric of your reality, the betrayal that makes you question the nature of love, the illness that rips away the illusion of invulnerability. It is the moment when you kneel, metaphorically or literally, in the darkness of your own life, surrounded by the debris of your plans and hopes, and with a voice broken by pain, you hurl the most human of all questions to the universe. Why is this happening to me? In that question, in that moment of total breakdown, you are not being punished. You are being blessed. Because that night, that pain, is an invitation. It is the universe, your own soul, which, tired of your distractions, your constant flight from yourself, has cornered you in a windowless room, turned off all the lights and placed you in front of the only mirror you cannot avoid, the mirror of your own consciousness. The first revelation. The universe is a mirror. The first and most shocking revelation that emerges from this night, the fundamental truth upon which all forbidden metaphysics is built, is this: your external reality is a perfect reflection of your internal state. Forget the illusion of a solid external world separate from you. That is the victim's narrative, the hypnotic dream from which you are about to awaken. The truth this knowledge reveals is that the world you experience, your finances, your relationships, your health, the coincidences of your day, is not an independent entity acting upon you. It is an echo. It is a living mirror, impeccable and sometimes brutally honest, that reflects, without filters or judgment, the signal you are emitting at every instant. Life is not happening to you. It is happening in response to you. In the fever of your night of the mirror, when you relive the recurring pains of your life, the same wounds with different faces, you realize an astonishing truth. You are not living what you deserve in a karmic sense of reward or punishment. You are living what you have not transformed within yourself. The fear of abandonment you carry since childhood, that primal wound, you have projected onto your path as a silent expectation. And the world, like an obedient actor following your script, has brought you the play of abandonment again and again, through partners who leave, friends who distance themselves, opportunities that abandon you at the last minute. The unconscious belief that you are not enough, whispered in your childhood, you have emitted as a constant frequency, and the world has returned the echo of a lack of recognition, of bosses who do not value you, of scarcity that seems to confirm your lack of worth. The repressed anger you keep in the basement of your being, that energy you refuse to feel and express healthily, is what manifests as conflict and aggression in your relationships, attracting people who act as a detonator for your own inner time bomb. The universe is not the author of the script. It is the mirror that reflects with absolute fidelity the script you are writing consciously or unconsciously in the silence of your soul. This principle is not a poetic philosophy. It is a law of the physics of consciousness. It operates through resonance. Your state of being, the sum of your thoughts, your beliefs, and above all your dominant emotions, is a vibrational signature, a song you are constantly emitting. And the quantum field, the fabric of the universe, is obligated by law to arrange energy and particles to correspond, to resonate, with your emission. You do not attract what you want with your surface mind. You attract what you are with the totality of your being. Imagine a fisherman lamenting on the shore of a vast blue ocean. "This sea is terrible," he shouts into the wind. "It never gives me the fish I want. It is a barren ocean." He spends his days cursing the ocean, blaming the tides, the seasons, envying the other fishermen who return with their boats full. One day, an old master sits silently beside him. He watches as the fisherman casts his net with great effort, again and again, and pulls it out almost empty, with only a few small fish and some trash. The master does not look at the sea. He looks at the net, and after a long silence, he says to the fisherman, "The ocean is infinitely abundant. The problem is not the sea. The problem is the enormous holes in your net. Your consciousness is that net. Your limiting beliefs, I am not enough. Life is a struggle. Your unhealed fears, your stored resentments, are the holes. You can be in the most abundant ocean of opportunity, love, and prosperity. But if your instrument of reception is broken, if your net is full of holes, you will only be able to gather the experience of scarcity and frustration. The night of the mirror is the moment you stop blaming the sea and for the first time with courageous humility, you dare to examine your own net. The shift of power, the end of the struggle. This revelation, though painful at first, is the end of powerlessness. It is the moment you reclaim your sovereignty, because if your reality is a reflection, then the struggle against the reflection is the most useless and exhausting act that exists. You cannot change your life by fighting your circumstances. You cannot eliminate scarcity by fighting the bills. You cannot find love by fighting loneliness. It is like trying to erase a wrinkle from your face by angrily wiping the mirror. The only place of power, the only point of creation, the only place where change is real and permanent, is the source of the image. To change the reflection, you must change your face. To change your world, you must change your being. The real work does not begin by trying to change the world, but by learning to read it. The initiate in this knowledge becomes a detective of their own soul, using the reflection of their life as a map of their inner territory. When an unwanted external circumstance presents itself, the initiate no longer hurls the victim's question at the sky. Why is this happening to me? In the silence of their being, the only question that matters is, if this event is a perfect mirror, what belief, wound, or emotional state within me is it reflecting with such precision? If the mirror of their finances shows constant scarcity, they understand that the real question is not about the money, but about the song their soul sings about it. Is it one of fear of not having, of guilt for desiring it, or a deep belief, whispered in childhood, that people like us don't deserve to be rich? The answer is not in the ledger books, but in the music they feel in their chest when they think about wealth. If the mirror of their relationship shows a recurring pattern of abandonment or betrayal, the initiate knows that the question is not, why does everyone treat me this way? The question is, where am I abandoning myself? What part of me betrays my own intuition, selling my truth for a crumb of approval? And the most honest mirror of all, the most intimate, the one that offers us the most direct feedback are other people, especially those who push our buttons, who irritate us, hurt us, trigger us. The sleeping mind sees these people as enemies, as the cause of their pain. The initiate learns to see them as messengers, the bravest messengers of their own soul, hired on the invisible plane to show them, with inescapable clarity, the parts of themselves that they have not yet healed. Thus, when someone triggers them emotionally, when they feel that pang of anger, humiliation, or sadness, the initiate pauses, in the moment if they have the mastery, or later in the stillness of reflection. And instead of projecting their pain outward with blame and accusation, they turn inward and ask, "What wound in me has just been touched? This person is just the finger pressing a bruise that already existed. What is the story of that bruise?" And they often discover, with a liberating astonishment, that the anger they feel toward their boss is the echo of the anger they never expressed to their father. That the fear of rejection from their partner is the echo of the fear of abandonment they felt in the schoolyard. The other person is not the cause. They are the messenger who has brought them a letter from their own past, a letter that has long been waiting to be read. By stopping the blame of the messenger, they can finally open the letter and read its content. And in that reading, in that act of becoming aware, true healing begins. A madman is one who, seeing a stain on his face in the mirror, tries to wipe the mirror. The initiate in this knowledge knows that the only place where change is possible is at the source of the image, in themselves. And so, after having read the reflection, after having diagnosed the belief or the inner wound that is causing it, the real work begins. They retreat to the silence of their being and declare, not as a plea, but as a sovereign oath, "I have seen the reflection. I accept the message. I thank the mirror for its honesty, and now I choose to withdraw my attention from the effect and focus all my power on the cause. My work begins within." Chapter 2. The Inherited Voices. You have stopped blaming the sea and have begun to examine your own net. But as you look at that net, as you observe its holes, its knots, its patterns, an inevitable question must arise. Who wove this net? Where do these limiting beliefs come from, these fears that paralyze me? The answer takes us on an even deeper journey back in time, not to the events of your adult life, but to the sacred and vulnerable ground of your childhood. Because most of the strands that make up the net of your reality were not woven by you. They were inherited. Perhaps you were 7 years old, or 5, or 10. The exact age doesn't matter. What matters is that your mind was a field of fertile soil without a guardian. Critical thinking, the sentinel that now watches the gate of your beliefs, had not yet been born. And in that open, receptive land, others came and planted seeds. They did not do it with malice. For the most part, they did it with love, with fear, with the deep ignorance of one who does not know they are a sower, one who is unaware of the power of their own words and their own energy. Perhaps it was your father, his face hardened by the worry of a difficult day, who planted the seed of fear by saying, "Don't talk so loudly, don't draw attention to yourself, it's not safe to stand out." And that day, in that instant, without your knowledge, you learned that expression is dangerous, and that seed began to grow. Perhaps it was your mother, with a sigh of resignation while looking at bills, who planted the seed of limitation by saying, "Money doesn't grow on trees. People like us have to struggle for everything we have." And that day you learned that your destiny was struggle, and that seed began to grow. Perhaps it was a teacher who, with a gesture of impatience, humiliated you in front of the class, or a priest who spoke to you of original sin, or the anonymous voice of culture that, through fairy tales and television, planted the seeds of guilt, shame, of what you should be and what you could never achieve. These words were not mere sounds. They were spells. They were hypnotic decrees. They were lines of code installed directly into the operating system of your soul, without your conscious mind having the opportunity to accept or reject them. And those seeds, watered by the years and by repetition, grew. They grew into robust trees, into forests so dense that they came to form the entire landscape of your mind. And what is more subtle, more insidious, over time, the sound of those voices merged with your own. You came to believe they were your own thoughts. Your father's voice of fear became your imprudence. Your mother's resignation became your key realism. The teacher's criticism became your perfectionism. Your mind became an infiltrated temple, a sacred place inhabited by the ghosts of others' beliefs, and you, unknowingly, have spent your life praying at an altar you did not choose, obeying gods you never consciously believed in. This is the second revelation of our journey. Much of your suffering is not born from your soul. It is born from the echo of inherited thoughts. You live in a prison without bars, built with the borrowed ideas of your ancestors. You are walking like a sleepwalker, inside an invisible map that was drawn for you, not by you. The initiate in this knowledge, upon receiving this revelation, feels at first a dizziness, a stripping away. If my thoughts are not mine, if my beliefs are not mine, then who am I? But this dizziness is the prelude to the greatest liberation of all, because the moment you realize you have been using someone else's map, you acquire, for the first time, the power to fold it, put it in your pocket, and start drawing your own. But to do that, you must first become a master of Untown's discernment. You must learn to sit in the silence of your mind and interrogate every thought that claims to be king. You must learn to separate the wheat from the chaff, your truth from the inherited noise. The 3 questions of the Master, purifying the temple. You have recognized, with a clarity that can be both liberating and uncomfortable, that much of the map you have navigated your life with was not drawn by you. Now, with this revelation in hand, the purification of the temple begins. It is not an act of violence, of anger toward your programmers. Resentment toward the past is simply another inherited voice, another chain. True liberation does not come with fire and sword, but with the light of discernment. The initiate in this forbidden knowledge does not fight inherited thoughts. They know they are ghosts, echoes without substance of their own, and ghosts are not killed. They vanish when exposed to the light, when they are named and seen for what they truly are. The light is your awakened consciousness, and the tools for directing that light, for separating your truth from the noise, are the Muhammadan 3 questions of the Master. 3 truth filters that every thought must pass through before you grant it the honor of being accepted as your own. The first question: is this my truth or an echo? The first question is the one that unmasks the imposter. You take a recurring thought that limits you or causes you pain. I am not good enough. Success is for others. I can't trust anyone. I have to worry to be safe. And in the silence of your being, instead of accepting it as a truth, you put it in the dock. You ask it, not with accusation, but with the genuine curiosity of a detective. Where do you come from? What is your origin? Do I know you from my own direct, lived and felt experience, or do I know you because I have heard you 1,000 times in someone else's voice? Be honest. Follow the thread of the thought backward in time. Allow the associated memories to emerge. Is it your voice saying, I am not good enough? Or is it the echo of a perpetually dissatisfied father, a demanding teacher, a painful comparison with a sibling? Do you really know by overwhelming evidence in your life that you cannot trust anyone? Or is it the recording of an old wound of betrayal, yours or perhaps even your mother's, playing on an endless loop? If you cannot find the origin of a thought in your own sovereign experience, if its only authority is repetition and familiarity, it is very likely not yours. It is an echo. It is the voice of a ghost. And by recognizing it as such, by mentally labeling it as my father's thought about money, or my culture's belief about success, its power over you begins to fade. You have separated your identity from the thought. You have recognized the ghost, and a recognized ghost loses its power to frighten. The second question: does this voice expand me or contract me? The second question is the test of the body, your infallible oracle. The soul, your truth, always speaks the language of teens expansion. Inherited fear, no matter how logical it seems, always speaks the language of contraction. You take the same thought, and instead of analyzing it with the mind, you feel it in your body. Close your eyes, pronounce the belief silently in your mind. The world is a dangerous place and you must always be on alert. And now feel your body's response. What happens? Feel your chest tighten, your stomach knot, your shoulders tense, Your breathing becomes shallow. That is the unmistakable signature of a cage, of a voice that seeks to lock you in the false security of limitation. Now try a thought that you suspect is born of your soul, of your higher self. I am safe and guided at every moment. The universe conspires in my favor. Feel your body's response. Is there a lightness, an opening in your chest, a feeling of space, of possibility, a relaxation in your belly? That is the signature of truth, of a thought that aligns you with the infinite expansion of your true self. Your body is a perfect lie detector. It cannot be fooled by logic or reason. Learn to trust its wisdom. Any thought, any voice, any advice that makes you feel smaller, tenser, more contracted is an inherited voice of fear, no matter how logical or reasonable it seems. If it locks you in, it is a lie to the soul. The third question: would I choose this voice if I had no fear? The third and final question is the sword of liberation. It is what returns your power of choice to you right here, right now. It is what allows you to transcend programming and access your free will. Fear is the glue that keeps inherited beliefs adhered to your psyche. Fear of being different, fear of disappointing your family, an unconscious loyalty, fear of the unknown, fear of being wrong. You take the limiting thought once more with all its apparent logic. I shouldn't quit this secure job even if it makes me unhappy, because the economy is uncertain. And you ask yourself the final, bravest question with brutal honesty. If I had absolutely no fear, neither fear of failure nor of others' judgment nor of uncertainty, would I choose to believe this? Would I choose this action? The answer that emerges in the silence following that question is the voice of your soul, free from the chains of the past. Often the answer will be a resounding no. And in that no, even if you don't yet know what to do, you will find the courage to perhaps not act immediately, but to start withdrawing your faith from the old belief. You have introduced a doubt into the system, a sacred doubt. Chapter 3. The Embrace of the Shadow. As the noise of external voices fades, as the clamor of the ego's court subsides, a new sound, more subtle, deeper, and often more terrifying, begins to emerge from the foundations of your own being. It is the murmur of the parts of you that you yourself have exiled, because we have not only been colonized by the beliefs of others. In our desperate desire to be good, to be loved, to belong, we have waged a brutal civil war against ourselves. We have taken vast and powerful portions of our own soul, our anger, our vulnerability, our ambition, our sexuality, our wild joy, and chained them in the dungeons of our subconscious. This realm of the exiled, the denied, the repressed, is what the great psychologist Carl Jung called the shadow. And the third revelation of our journey, the one that asks the greatest courage of you, is this: you cannot be whole until you embrace your darkness. You cannot be truly free until you release your own prisoners. The creation of the shadow, the sacrifice for acceptance. No one is born with a shadow. We are born whole like radiant suns. As children, we express our full range of emotions and impulses without filter, without judgment. We laugh out loud, we cry with body-shaking despair, we scream with primordial rage, we show our body with total innocence. We are a whirlwind of pure, uncensored life force. But very soon, we learn the social contract. We learn, through the gaze of our parents, the words of our teachers, the rules of our culture, that certain parts of us are acceptable and earn us love, and others are unacceptable and bring us rejection, punishment, or shame. Good children don't get angry, and so we learn to repress our anger, our assertive life force, our ability to say no and protect our boundaries, and we banish it to the shadow. Don't cry, be strong. And we learn to repress our vulnerability, our sensitivity, our capacity to feel deeply, and we lock it in the dungeon. Don't be so ambitious, it's selfish. And we repress our desire for greatness, our yearning for expansion, for fear of being judged. Don't be so loud, so sexual, so emotional, so different. To survive, to secure our belonging to the tribe, to earn the precious currency of love, we amputate ourselves. We become an edited, censored, and safe version of what we could have been. And everything we have cut off, all that vital energy, does not die. It falls into the shadow, into the basement of our psyche, and from there, from the darkness, hungry, wounded, and furious about its exile, it begins to rule our lives. The tyranny of the shadow, projection and self-sabotage. A repressed energy does not disappear. It becomes toxic, it deforms, and the shadow, ignored in its dungeon, finds two main ways to manifest in your life: sabotaging your best intentions and creating inexplicable suffering. 1. Projection, the world as your shadow. The law of the mirror, as we have seen, is relentless, and its most potent manifestation is shadow projection. The principle is simple. What you cannot see and accept in yourself, you are condemned to see and judge violently in others. The shadow is projected. Your mind, to protect you from the painful truth of your own fragmentation, takes the qualities you have exiled and projects them onto the screen of the world, making you believe they only exist out there. The anger you have repressed in yourself, the one you were taught was bad, is what seems so intolerable and unjustified in your boss, your partner, or politicians. The weakness and vulnerability you refuse to feel are what you despise in others as sentimentality or victimhood. The ambition and desire for power you buried for fear of being selfish are what you criticize in others as greed or arrogance. The sexual freedom you judged as impure is what you obsess over and condemn in others. The world becomes a screen onto which your own shadow projects its horror films. The people who trigger you the most, who irritate you the most, who take you furthest out of your center, are not your enemies. They are the actors your soul has hired to play the roles of the parts of you that you refuse to look at. They are doing you a sacred and painful favor. They are showing you your own face in the darkness. 2. Self-sabotage, the prisoner who beats the walls. The shadow does not only project outward, it also acts inward. It is the source of our most inexplicable self-sabotage, of those destructive patterns that repeat again and again despite our best intentions. A repressed energy is like a powerful prisoner who longs for freedom. And if you don't visit it, if you don't listen to its demands, if you don't give it a healthy channel of expression, it will begin to beat the walls, to create chaos in the kingdom, to get your attention. Ambition repressed for fear of failure can manifest as chronic procrastination. It sabotages your projects to protect you from the possible humiliation of trying and failing. The need for freedom repressed by a sense of duty can lead you to unconsciously create a crisis, an illness, a job loss, a breakup, that forces you to stop and reevaluate a life that has become suffocating. Repressed anger can manifest as casual accidents, as a clumsiness that breaks valuable objects, or as illnesses that attack the body itself. Repressed joy, the one you were taught was ridiculous, can sabotage your moments of happiness, creating a thought of anxiety or catastrophe just when everything seems to be going too well. The shadow is the silent saboteur, the ghost in the machine that presses the self-destruct button just when you are about to achieve success or peace. It does not do it out of malice. It does it out of desperation. It is the cry of a part of you that yearns for integration. The 3 practices, the rescue of the exiled self. You have seen how the parts of you that you exiled in childhood have not died, but have been ruling your kingdom from the dungeons, projecting their pain into the mirror of your relationships and sabotaging your creations from within. This revelation can be terrifying. The idea of confronting our own anger, our vulnerability, our deepest fears, is the adventure the ego fears most. But the initiate in the legacy of the flame knows that the real dragon guarding the treasure is not in the external world. It resides in the caves of our own being. And the path to wholeness is not to slay the dragon, but to embrace it until it reveals its true form, which is often that of an enchanted prince. Now, we stop being the victims of the shadow and become its liberators. The following practices are not a battle. They are an act of rescue. They are the embrace that transmutes everything. The first practice, the art of the mirror, reading the projection. The shadow is, by nature, unconscious. You cannot find it by seeking it directly, but it sends you messages constantly. As we have seen, the people who trigger you the most emotionally are the mirrors of your shadow. Your first practice is to learn to read the message in the mirror. The mirror protocol. When a person triggers you, irritates you, humiliates you, angers you, frightens you, resist the programmed impulse to blame the mirror. Pause. And in the stillness of your journal, you become a detective of your own soul. What exact emotion am I feeling? Name it with the precision of a scientist. Don't say, I feel bad. Say, I feel a burning anger in my stomach. I feel a cold shame that shrinks my chest. I feel the panic of abandonment in my throat. Be specific. The emotion is the thread that will lead you to the wound. What belief about myself or the world is being activated by this situation? Follow the trail of the emotion to the belief that fuels it. Complete the sentence. This situation makes me feel emotion, which means that I am belief about yourself. For example, my boss criticized me. I feel humiliated, which means that I am incompetent and a fraud. My partner hasn't replied. I feel abandonment, which means I am unworthy of love and everyone leaves. You have found the wound, the root belief the shadow is protecting. Where in my past did I first learn to feel this way? Who was the first mirror that showed me this image? Travel back in time in your mind. Often you will discover that 90% of the emotional charge you feel does not belong to the current situation. It is the echo of an original wound, that the pain you feel is not because of your boss, but the echo of the pain you felt with your father, that the fear of abandonment from your partner is the echo of the fear you felt when you got lost in the supermarket as a child. By tracing the wound to its origin, you depersonalize it. The current situation ceases to be a tragedy and becomes an opportunity to heal the past in the present. The second practice. The dialogue with the prisoner, the integration of the shadow. Once you have identified the part of you that has been triggered, the next step is not to fix it, it is to listen to it. The shadow does not want to be fixed, it wants to be seen. Your practice is one of compassionate dialogue. The inner sanctuary protocol. Create the sacred space. In your meditation, imagine a safe and beautiful place within you, a sanctuary, a garden. Invite the prisoner. Now, invite that part of you that you have exiled to enter this space. If the emotion was anger, perhaps it appears as a caged wild animal or as a small child throwing a tantrum. If it was vulnerability, perhaps it appears as a child crying in a corner. Do not judge the form it takes. Simply welcome it. Ask the healing questions. From your position as a compassionate observer, you speak to this part of you. What have you been trying to tell me? What have you been trying to protect me from? Anger often tries to protect you from being vulnerable. Repressed ambition tries to protect you from failure. What do you need from me right now? Often the answer is simple. Just listen to me. Accept me. Let me exist. Offer the gift. Listen to the answer. And offer that part of you what it needs. Give it the hug it never received. Give it the validation it yearned for. Promise it that you will no longer keep it locked up, that you will find a healthy way for its energy to be expressed. This dialogue is profoundly healing. It is the act of reunification. It is the king descending to the dungeons, not to punish the prisoner, but to listen to them, to forgive them, and to invite them back to the court. The third practice, the alchemy of the gift, extracting the gold. The shadow, once it is seen and accepted, reveals its secret. Every part of you that you have exiled was not just a wound, it was a treasure. It guarded a quality of power that you needed but feared. Your final practice is that of alchemy, extracting the gold from the lead of the shadow. Repressed anger, once integrated, transmutes into the gold of passion, the strength to set healthy boundaries, and the energy to fight for justice. Exiled vulnerability transmutes into the gold of empathy, deep intimacy, and magnetic authenticity. Ambition, judged as selfish, transmutes into the gold of purpose, leadership, and the capacity to serve the world on a grand scale. Fear is not an enemy to be annihilated. It is the dragon that guards the cave where your greatest potential is hidden. Fear shows you exactly where you need to go, where your next level of growth lies. The Gift Embodiment Protocol. Once you have identified the gold your shadow guarded, your job is to give it a conscious and healthy expression in your life. If you have reclaimed the gold of your anger, your practice is to set a small but firm boundary with someone this week. If you have reclaimed the gold of your vulnerability, your practice is to share an authentic feeling with someone you trust. If you have reclaimed the gold of your ambition, your practice is to take the first and smallest step toward that project you have been postponing out of fear. By doing this, you give the freed prisoner an honorable job in the kingdom. You give it a channel, and the energy that once manifested as sabotage now becomes the fuel for your creation. The embrace of the shadow has been completed. You have stopped being a kingdom divided at war with itself. You have descended into your own depths not with fear, but with the light of compassion. Chapter 4. The Womb of the Void. After a great cleansing, after the old idols have been torn down and the false echoes have faded, often what arrives is not the immediate light of revelation, but a deep, unsettling, and sometimes terrifying silence. An empty space. It is the moment when you have left the job you hated, the one that drained your soul, but you still do not know what your true passion is. It is the end of a relationship that defined you, and now you find yourself in the deafening solitude of a new beginning. It is the crisis of faith in which the old beliefs and dogmas have collapsed like a house of cards, but the new truths have not yet been born to take their place. This state, this apparent nothingness, this space between stories, is the place most feared by the human mind. It is the void, and the world with its incessant noise and its cult of activity taught you from childhood to flee from it. It taught you to immediately fill it with a new goal, a new relationship, a new distraction, a new television series, anything not to have to face the immensity of not knowing, the apparent annihilation of stillness. But the fourth revelation of the legacy of the flame, the one that separates the neophyte who seeks distractions from the true alchemist who seeks creation, is this. The void is not death. It is the womb of creation. It is not the end. It is the most sacred beginning of all. The physiology of the void. Why the ego fears silence. We must understand why we fear this space so much. The fear of the void is not a flaw in your character. It is a survival mechanism of your ego. The ego, the identity you have built, is defined by what it knows, what it does, and what it has. Its security is based on familiarity and definition. I am a lawyer. I am in a relationship with this person. I believe this. I know how the world works. The void is the state of not knowing, not doing, and not having. It is the dissolution of old identities. And for the ego, dissolution is synonymous with death. That is why when the void appears in your life, the ego enters a state of absolute panic. It screams. It floods you with unbearable anxiety. It urges you to do something, to find a new label, to build a new wall, to fill the silence with any noise so as not to have to hear the terrifying possibility that, without your old stories, without your masks, you are nobody. But the initiate in the legacy of the flame knows that this death is an illusion. It is only the character that dies. It is only the costume that falls off. And it is in the death of the character that the true actor, the soul, finally has the space to breathe, to remember who they are, and to choose their next role with freedom instead of by reaction. Imagine a painter who has spent years working on a single large canvas. He has painted layer upon layer of dark landscapes, grieving portraits, scenes of struggle and limitation. The canvas is full, dense, heavy with the history of his old art, his old wounds. One day the painter has a revelation. He decides he wants to paint the light, that he wants to create a masterpiece of radiant beauty, of expansive joy. But where can he paint? The canvas is completely covered. There is not an inch of white space left. He could try to paint the light over the darkness, but the colors would mix. Bright yellow would turn a sickly green when touching the old blue of sadness. Pure white would turn a leaden gray when mixed with the black of fear. The new creation would always be stained, contaminated by the old. The true artist knows that to create something truly new, he must first do something terrifying. He must take the solvent. He must, with an act of courage and faith, clean the canvas. He must erase everything. He must face the pure white, the intimidating and overwhelming nothingness of the empty canvas. This empty canvas for the novice artist is terrifying. There are no references. There is no history. Just overwhelming, infinite potential that can paralyze. But for the master, the empty canvas is the most sacred state. It is the womb of genius. It is the only place from which a true masterpiece, one that is not an echo of the past but an original creation, can be born. Your consciousness is that canvas. And the void you feel in your life, the confusion, the loss, the not knowing, is not proof that you are lost. It is proof that you have finally cleaned the canvas. You are ready to paint something new, something true. The fertile womb, the physics of potentiality. The void is not an absence. It is a presence. It is the presence of pure potentiality. It is the silence between the notes that gives the symphony its beauty and meaning. It is the warm darkness of the earth in which the seed must germinate. As long as your life is filled with the noise of your old habits, your old beliefs, your old relationships, there is no space for the new creation to take root. The universe may be trying to send you the seed of your purpose, the idea of your next great adventure, but that seed falls on concrete ground, on an already painted canvas, and cannot germinate. Loss, crisis, the dark night of the soul are not punishments. They are acts of grace. They are the universe with the wisdom of a gardener ploughing your field, removing the hard, compacted dirt of your old self so that the soil becomes soft, receptive, and fertile again. The initiate's practice is not to flee from this fallow period, but to honor it, to remain in it, to trust in the fertility of their own void. The three practices. The art of emptying the vessel. You have identified the stones that obstruct our own inner spring. But how do you empty a glass that you have spent a lifetime filling? How do you learn to let go of the certainties that have given you a false sense of security? You do not do it with violence. You do not break the glass. You simply, with conscious intention, tilt it and allow what no longer serves to pour out, creating the space for the fresh, crystal-clear water of the ocean to enter. You now enter the workshop of the empty soul. The first practice, the art of not knowing, dissolving the stone of certainty. To dissolve the heavy stone of certainty, you practice the art of not knowing. You become a practitioner of the beginner's mind, a central concept in Zen wisdom. A beginner's mind is a mind that approaches every moment as if it were the first time. It has no conclusions. It is full of curiosity, wonder, and questions. Your practice is to cultivate this mind in your daily life. The sacred question. Faced with any situation, especially those about which you have a strong opinion, you ask yourself the sacred question: what if everything I believe I know about this were wrong or incomplete? This simple question is like a lever that creates a fissure in the rock of your certainty, allowing new light to enter. Listening to learn, not to reply. In your conversations, you practice deep listening. Instead of listening while preparing your answer, you listen with the sole intention of understanding the other's perspective, as if it were a completely new and unknown universe to you. The embrace of uncertainty. You learn to become comfortable in not knowing. You recognize that the ego's need to have an answer for everything is a form of fear, and instead you choose to rest in the mystery. This is not an act of ignorance, but of a superior intelligence. It is the humble recognition that your personal mind is only a wave, and that the ocean contains an infinitely vaster wisdom. By practicing not knowing, you tell the ocean, I am ready to learn. The second practice, the dissolution of identity, releasing the sediment of the past. To release the stagnant water of the past, the stories of this is how I am, you practice the dissolution of identity. You sit in silence in your meditation, and you repeat like a mantra the phrase that is the key to freedom. I am not my stories. With each repetition, you feel how the old labels, the shy one, the failure, the victim, begin to lose their power over you. You realize that you are not the story your mind tells. You are the consciousness that is aware of the story. You are the sky, not the clouds that cross it. You are the silent space in which the movie of your life is projected. This disidentification is the act of releasing the past. You stop defining your present by the facts of your yesterday. You stop filling your glass with the sediment of what was, creating the space for what can be. The third practice, the surrender of destiny, dissolving the sludge of control. Finally, to dissolve the thick sludge of control and rigid expectation, you practice intelligent surrender. After asking your sacred question to the ocean, after setting your intention, you perform the final act of release. You add the clause that changes everything, the one that transforms an ego demand into a co-creation with the divine. I accept this, or something better, for my highest good and the good of all involved. This is not an act of doubt. It is an act of humility and supreme wisdom. It is the recognition that your vision, as a wave, is limited, and that the ocean, in its vast perspective, may have an even more magnificent plan for you. By letting go of your attachment to the how and the when, you give the universe the freedom to surprise you. You tell it, I trust you more than I trust my own plan. Chapter 5. The frequency of certainty. Once you have created the space, the moment of creation arrives. And here, at this crucial point, the untrained mind makes its most tragic mistake. Feeling this space of pure potentiality, it gets scared. And in its fear, it rushes to fill it with the old noise of desire. It shouts its longings into the silence. It begs, it pleads, it chases, and in its haste, in its need to fill the void, it unknowingly repaints the old, familiar landscape of lack onto the newly cleaned canvas. The fifth revelation of the legacy of the flame, the one that transforms the initiate into a true alchemist, the one that separates the petitioner from the creator, is this. Creation is not born from desire, it is born from certainty. Desire versus certainty. The alchemy of intention. We must understand, with a surgeon's clarity, the fundamental vibrational difference between these two frequencies. At first glance, they seem similar, but they are opposite poles of the creative spectrum. Desire, as experienced by the sleeping mind, is born from the wound of separation. It is the voice of the ego which, from its veil of forgetfulness, perceives itself as an incomplete entity in a vast, separate universe. Desire is the declaration of that separation. Its logic is, I am missing something. What I long for is out there, and I am here, incomplete without it. Its energetic signature is lack. It is a frequency of not having. When you emit this frequency, the universe, which is a perfect mirror, does not hear the word abundance. It hears the music of the lack of abundance. And like a faithful echo, it returns more of the same, more experiences that validate your feeling of not having. Desire is a prayer of absence. It is a constant declaration that the gift has not yet arrived. And the universe, in its literal obedience to your state of being, honors your declaration and keeps the gift at a distance, perpetuating the game of the search. Certainty, on the other hand, is of a completely different nature. It is not born from lack, but from fullness. It is not an act of asking the universe. It is an act of recognizing a truth that already exists on the plane of consciousness. It is the frequency that emanates from a consciousness that no longer feels separate from what it desires, but knows itself to be one with it. Its energetic signature is presence. It is a frequency of it already is. It is the sovereign calm of the king who does not desire to be king. He simply is king. His state of being is the source of his reality, not a reaction to it. Certainty is a prayer of presence. It is the declaration that, on the only plane that matters, that of your consciousness, the creation is already finished. Creation does not respond to the anxious plea of the beggar. It responds to the silent decree of the sovereign. I learned this law not in an ancient text, but in the stillness of a night in Padua. I had been practicing the art of the empty vessel for weeks, in a deep silence, not looking for anything, but simply surrendered to feeling and observing the flow of the universe through me. The womb of the void had become my home. There was nothing left that I needed. One night I was sitting under an ancient tree with branches curved like a mother's arms in the gardens of an old monastery, and in that absolute peace, In that silent fullness, a pure, clear, and weightless thought arose in my consciousness. It was not a desperate desire or a painful longing. It was a clear intention, an impulse of the soul. I would like a book, I thought. Just one. A text to guide me in this new territory of being. And in my mind, with crystalline clarity, I saw the cover of a lost manuscript by Plotinus, a Neoplatonic philosopher whose wisdom about the one my soul longed for, a book I had sought in vain for years and which I believed impossible to find. There was no struggle. There was no pleading. There was no visualization technique. Just the thought, held for an instant in the perfect stillness of my being, and then I let it go. I returned my attention to the silence, to the singing of the crickets, to the feeling of the night air on my skin. The intention was planted and forgotten. The next morning, as I meditated at dawn, an elderly monk whose face I had never seen and never saw again approached the place where I was. He did not say his name. He did not utter a word. Simply, with a slight bow of the head, he left an object wrapped in a coarse cloth beside me and walked away in silence down the misty path. When I opened it, my heart stopped for an instant. It was an ancient copy, bound in leather, deteriorated by time, of the Plotinus manuscript I had seen in my mind. In that moment, I understood a law as clear as the sun beginning to warm my face. The universe had not responded to my desire in the conventional sense. It had responded to the purity of my intention. It had cooperated with the frequency of my certainty. It was not magic. It was not luck. It was alignment. Because my intention was not born from the anxiety of lack, I need this book to find answers. It was born from the calm of fullness. It would be beautiful if this wisdom arrived. There was no resistance in my request. It was a pure note, played on a perfectly tuned instrument, in the midst of absolute silence. And when there is no resistance, when the signal is pure, the universe cooperates with a speed and grace that seem miraculous. Your job, therefore, is not to desire harder. It is to purify your intention until it becomes a silent certainty. It is to stop being the beggar who asks from lack and to become the king who knows with unshakable calm that his entire kingdom belongs to him. The 3 practices, forging the gold of certainty. You cannot simply decide to have certainty, in the same way that you cannot decide to have faith. Certainty is not a mental opinion. It is a state of being. It is a frequency that is cultivated, practiced, and finally embodied. The following practices are the way to transmute the lead of desire into the gold of certainty. They are the disciplines of the sovereign. The first practice, the transmutation of desire, from petition to decree. The first step is to learn to take the energy of your current desires and purify it. Your practice is that of alchemical distillation, a process to find the truth hidden behind your yearning. You take your journal, your consciousness laboratory, and you choose a desire you feel strongly, one born of the soul's yearning, and you begin to apply the alchemist's question to it. Why? You drill through the superficial layers of form until you reach the vibrational core of the essence. Declare the superficial desire, the form, I want to find my soulmate. Apply the why. Function, why do I want to find my soulmate? To no longer feel alone and to share my life. Why do I want to share my life? What feeling am I looking for in that connection? I am looking for the feeling of being seen, of being unconditionally accepted, of a deep connection. And what is that feeling of being seen and accepted? It is a feeling of love and belonging. Distill the essence, the state of being. You have distilled the command. Your true north is not a person, it is the state of being of acceptance and love. Formulate the decree of certainty. Now you transform the prayer of absence, I want to find, into a declaration of presence. Instead of focusing on the external form, the person, you focus on embodying the internal essence. Your new intention, your new decree becomes, I am the embodiment of love and unconditional acceptance. This process is fundamental. It frees you from attachment to the specific form. When you try to manifest a person, you limit the universe. When you focus on becoming the love, you become magnetic to all forms of love, including the perfect partner who resonates with that frequency. The second practice, the ritual of assumption, embodiment in silence. With your decree of certainty formulated, you must now engrave it onto your subconscious, not as a goal to be achieved, but as a truth to be remembered. This practice, often done in the drowsy state before sleep, is the ritual of assumption. It is the art of living in the end. Enter the empty vessel. Begin your meditation. Silence the echoes of the valley. Enter that state of receptive stillness. Release the desire. Choose the identity. Completely let go of the image of you searching or wanting something. Abandon the identity of the seeker and instead choose, as if putting on a royal cloak, the identity of your decree. Now, I am not the one looking for love. I am the love. Embody the feeling. With this new identity assumed, you ask yourself, how does it feel to be the embodiment of love? Don't think about it. Feel it. Allow the sensation of warmth, of fullness, of connection, of unconditional acceptance to flood your body. Feel your heart opening. Feel the tension of the search dissolving into the peace of the arrival. Rest in the state. You don't have to visualize anything specific. You simply rest in this feeling. You marinate in this new frequency. It is the state of the king who doesn't have to do anything to be king. He simply sits on his throne and is. Maintain this feeling, this consciousness of I am your essence until you fall asleep. This ritual is not an attempt to attract something. It is an act of remembering who you are. And by remembering it with enough consistency, your subconscious accepts this new identity as its new directive. The third practice, the testimony of being, living from certainty. The nightly ritual is the planting. Your daytime life is the watering. You must maintain the frequency of certainty in the world of facts that often contradict your new truth. Your practice is one of living as if it were, not as a pretense, but as a testimony to your faith. The certainty filter. Throughout your day, you interpret every event through the filter of your new certainty. If your certainty is, I am abundance, and you receive an unexpected bill, you do not fall into panic. You pause and ask yourself, how would the abundance that I am view this? Perhaps the answer is, as a simple opportunity for the universe to demonstrate how it flows through me to cover all my needs. Action from certainty. Your actions cease to be those of the beggar and become those of the king. Instead of hoarding your money out of fear, you give a generous tip, not as an expense but as a declaration that you live in a universe of sufficiency. Instead of waiting for others to give you love, you offer a smile, a compliment, an act of kindness, because you act from the fullness of the love that you already are. The anchor of sensation. Several times a day you pause, you close your eyes for 30 seconds, and you reconnect with the physical sensation of your certainty, the relief, the peace, the expansion in your chest. This act of constant recalibration keeps your frequency tuned and your signal clear, even amidst the noise of the world. Chapter 6. The fear of receiving. For a long time I believed that it was others who limited me. I believed that my enemies were external, the church with its dogmas that suffocated the truth, the judges with their ignorance dressed as authority, the inquisitors with their fear disguised as piety. I built my identity as a martyr of truth, a solitary fighter against the vast forces of ignorance. It was a noble story, one that gave my suffering a heroic purpose. But in the solitude of my exile, in the forced stillness that follows battle, when there were no longer external enemies to blame, the universe forced me to confront a much more intimate, much more cunning adversary. It was a rainy afternoon in Ferrara. After months of uncertainty, of constant flight, I had been offered a place to teach in secret, a circle of awakened souls who yearned for my knowledge. It was a valuable opportunity, a safe harbor in the middle of my storm. It was everything I had asked for in my silent prayers. And yet, at the moment of accepting, I found myself paralyzed, looking for excuses to reject it. It wasn't external danger that stopped me. It was a silent terror, an icy knot in my stomach that whispered to me, with a perverse logic, "It's too good to be true. Don't trust it. There's a catch." That night, in front of a flickering candle, I didn't speak to the universe. I spoke to my fear. I invited it to sit down, and for the first time, instead of fighting it, I listened to it, and in its feverish whispers, I understood something that hurt more than any exile, more than any pyre. It wasn't them, the inquisitors who had taken away my peace. It was me. It had always been me, fearing to receive. I feared that if something good arrived, punishment would inevitably follow. I feared to trust, because trust, in my experience, had always been the prelude to betrayal. I feared to lose because the pain of losing something loved is infinitely greater than the dull pain of never having had it. And above all, the deepest fear, the most shameful one, the root of all the others, I feared discovering that I was capable of creating my own security and happiness, and then, having no one left to blame, I would lose my story. I would lose my noble identity as a martyr. And who would I be then? This is the silent saboteur, the guardian of the shadow that lives in the depths of almost every human soul, the fear of receiving. This fear is not a simple thought. It is a root program, a virus installed in the deepest part of our operating system, often in the very first moments of our lives. And it has three main faces, three masks it uses to justify its sabotage. 1. The face of unworthiness, the decree of I don't deserve. This is the oldest, most fundamental face. It is the whispered belief, recorded in us before we had defenses. I don't deserve it. It is born from every criticism, every comparison with a better sibling, every time love was given to us as a reward for being good, not as an unconditional right for simply existing. This belief in unworthiness is a constant frequency of rejection that you emit to the universe. When the universe approaches you with a gift, an opportunity, a sum of money, the love of a good person, this program activates like a defense system, and it shouts at the universe from your subconscious, "No, take it back, not for me. I am not worthy of something so good." And the universe, which always honors your deepest belief, withdraws the gift or manifests a circumstance that ruins it, validating your belief in unworthiness. You are like a beggar who has prayed for a gold coin, and when someone offers it, he rejects it, terrified because it does not fit his identity as the one who has nothing. 2. The face of the fear of loss, the walled heart. This is the face of the wounded heart. If in your past you have experienced a painful, unhealed loss, the loss of a love, of security, of a dream, of trust, your subconscious, in its attempt to protect you, may have written a tragic law on the walls of your being. It is safer not to have than to have and then lose. From the perspective of this law, happiness becomes dangerous. Love becomes terrifying because it contains the seed of possible abandonment. So you choose unavailable people or sabotage the relationship just as it becomes most intimate, to leave before you are left. Success becomes dangerous because it contains the possibility of failure and humiliation. So you procrastinate, don't finish your projects, refuse the promotion, so as not to have to face the danger of being at the top and possibly falling. Your soul, in its mistaken attempt to protect you from future pain, sabotages present happiness. It has built a wall around your heart, so no one can hurt it again. But it has forgotten that a wall that keeps pain out also keeps love out. 3. The face of the fear of sovereignty, the vertigo of freedom. This is the most subtle, deepest, and often the most powerful face. It is the fear of our own power. As long as we are victims, as long as we can blame the world, others, our past, we have an excuse. We are safe from the immense and terrifying responsibility of being the creators of our own lives. Receiving fully what we desire, manifesting our vision with clarity, means that the law works. And if the law works, then there are no more excuses. There is no one left to blame. We are the sole sovereigns of our kingdom. And this responsibility for the ego that has lived its whole life in the comfortable exile of victimization is terrifying. It is like a prisoner who has spent his whole life in a dark cell and is suddenly released into the blinding sun and the immensity of the open sky. It is the vertigo of freedom. Success strips us bare. It leaves us without alibis. It forces us to admit our own power. And often, unconsciously, We prefer the familiarity of the cell with its complaints and justifications to the immensity of freedom. These three faces, unworthiness, fear of loss, and fear of sovereignty, are the guardians of your soul's dungeon. They are the jailers who prevent you from receiving the gifts that the universe longs to give you, and you cannot fight them, because they are you. The initiate in the legacy of the flame does not try to kill their demons. They know they are fallen angels, parts of their own divinity that have been wounded, exiled, and forgotten. Their work is not that of the executioner, but that of the healer, the alchemical embrace. The integration of the shadow is not an act of conquest, but of love. It is the alchemical embrace. It is the art of descending into your own hell, not with a sword to slay, but with a lantern to see and a balm to heal. The shadow does not yearn for power, it yearns for acceptance. The monster roaring in your basement does not want to destroy the town. It wants to be invited in through the front door and to sit at the table, to be listened to for the first time. When you sit in the silence of your being and dare to invite your anger, your fear, or your shame to sit with you, without judgment, without the need to change them or fix them, a miracle occurs. The monster, upon being seen with the eyes of compassion, begins to transform. The energy that was frozen in the form of the demon melts and reveals its true nature, which is always power. Repressed anger, once embraced, reveals its true face. Passion, the strength to set healthy boundaries, the fire of truth that refuses to tolerate injustice. Repressed sadness, once allowed to be mourned in a safe space, transforms into empathy, compassion, and a deep connection with the human heart. Repressed fear, once looked in the eye and listened to, reveals its gift, prudence, sensitivity, the ability to anticipate and prepare, humility. Your shadow does not contain your weaknesses. It contains your unclaimed power, the gold you exiled along with the lead, the path of descent, the soul healer's protocol. How is this embrace carried out in practice? It is not done with intellectual analysis. You cannot think your way into shadow healing. It is done with presence. It is done in the body where the shadow lives. The following practices are the steps of the sacred descent. The first practice, the compassionate invitation, opening the sanctuary. The first step is to create the space. 1. Create the sanctuary. In your meditation, imagine a safe and beautiful place within you, a sanctuary, a secret garden, a silent temple. This is your healing space. 2. Abandon the tyranny of the high vibration. For a moment, stop trying to raise your vibration. That is a subtle form of rejection of what you feel. Instead, give yourself radical permission. I have permission to feel what is real for me right now without judgment. 3. Make the invitation. Now invite the exiled emotion to manifest. Speak to it. Fear of receiving, I see you. Unworthiness, I feel you. I will no longer run from you. I invite you into this safe space so that, at last, I can listen to you. The second practice, the healing dialogue, listening to the exiled. Once you have made the invitation, you become the most compassionate listener. 1. Locate in the body. Ask yourself, where does this emotion live in my body? And bring your attention there. Is it a tightness in the chest, a fire in the stomach, a knot in the throat? 2. Ask the healing questions. From your position as a compassionate observer, you speak to that sensation, to that part of you. What have you been trying to tell me? What have you been trying to protect me from? The fear of receiving often tries to protect you from the wound of loss or abandonment. What do you need from me right now? Often the answer is simple. Just listen to me. Accept me. Weep for me. 3. Listen without judgment. Allow the answers to emerge. They may come as words, as images, as memories. Do not analyze them, just receive them. You are listening for the first time to the prisoner's story. The third practice, somatic integration, releasing the energy. Once you have received the message, you must allow the messenger to leave. You must release its energy which is trapped in your body. 1. Breathe into it. Keeping your attention on the physical sensation, breathe into it. Imagine that your breath is a warm balm that surrounds the tension, giving it space to be. 2. Allow the expression. Allow the energy to move. This may mean crying without restraint, allowing accumulated sadness to cleanse your system. It may mean trembling, allowing your nervous system to discharge the energy of fear. It may mean hitting a cushion, allowing anger to be released safely. Trust your body's wisdom. It knows how to heal. 3. The final embrace. After the release, remain in silence and visualize sending a warm, golden light from your heart to that part of you, to that sensation. You wrap it in unconditional love. You say to it, "Thank you. You are part of me. You are welcome home." In this act of radical love, the trapped energy begins to flow again. The prisoner is released, and upon being released, he ceases to be a saboteur and becomes an ally. The immense amount of energy you once used to keep him locked up is now available to you for the creation of your new life. Chapter 7. The Harvest Before the Sowing. For many years, gratitude was a courtesy to me, something said after receiving, a virtue taught in monasteries but rarely felt in the marrow of the bones. It was the beggar's prayer. "Thank you for this alms." It was a reaction to an external event, a confirmation that I had received something I did not have before. And in that very structure, in that very act of thanking after the fact, the subtle but powerful affirmation of previous lack is hidden. But true gratitude, gratitude as a creative power, is not that of the beggar. It is that of the king. A king does not thank with surprise when his will is done. He dwells in a state of serene appreciation because the fulfillment of his word is the natural order of his kingdom. Creative gratitude is not the thank you say. It is the state of being from which you live. I understood this not in a book, not in a teaching, but in the nakedness of my own exile. I was walking at dawn on the outskirts of Lyon in France. The cold was bone-chilling. I had little food, insufficient clothes for the approaching winter, and even less certainty. From the world's perspective, I had nothing to be grateful for. I was in the heart of my night of the mirror, seeing the reflection of my own loss, my own solitude, my own scarcity. My mind, my valley of echoes, sang its old familiar song of fear. What will you do? How will you survive? You are alone and lost. And yet for some reason my logical mind could not comprehend, in the midst of that contraction of fear, my chest filled with a sudden warmth, a peace that did not come from what I had, but from what I suddenly recognized. I stopped, and I saw as if for the first time the way the first sunlight touched the frost on a leaf, turning it into a million tiny diamonds. I heard the solitary, defiant song of a bird, a melody that asked for nothing, simply expressed itself. I felt the simple, overwhelming miracle of my own breath, a breath that persisted, that kept me alive, despite everything. And a single word flowed from my lips, not as a thought, not as a practice, but as a sigh from the soul that, for a moment, remembered itself as whole regardless of its circumstances. Thank you. Not for something, not to someone. Just thank you. It was gratitude for the simple fact of being. Gratitude for the very consciousness that was aware of the cold, the light, and the bird. In that instant, something changed. The cold did not disappear, but I stopped caring. The hunger did not go away, but it became secondary. Because for a moment I had stopped being the beggar asking the world for warmth and food, and had become the king, recognizing the infinite richness of his own being. And it was then that I understood the law in my own cells. Gratitude is not a reaction to manifestation. It is the frequency of manifestation itself. This is not a poetic feeling. It is a law of the physics of consciousness. It is the difference between a black hole and a sun. When you feel in a state of lack, of yearning, of need, your vibrational signature is that of a hole, a vacuum trying to suck energy from the universe. It is a frequency of contraction. And the universe, which is a mirror, can only reflect back more emptiness, more experiences that validate your feeling of needing. When you feel in a state of gratitude, your vibrational signature is that of fullness. It is that of a sun. You are not trying to get anything. You are radiating a surplus of energy, of appreciation. It is a frequency of expansion. And the universe, by the law of resonance, must gravitate toward you more experiences, more people, more opportunities that correspond to that radiant fullness. Anticipated gratitude is faith converted into vibration. It is the act of tuning your instrument, not to the note of the question, when will it arrive? But to the note of the answer, it is already here. It is telling the universe in the only language it understands, I am ready, I trust, I am already on the frequency of what is coming. And the universe, receiving this signal of such absolute confidence, rushes to deliver the gift to complete the circuit. The three practices, the technology of the heart. The following practices are the technologies of the heart, the rituals to make gratitude not an occasional act, but your natural state of being. The first practice, the wealth audit, the daily harvest. To cultivate gratitude, you must first retrain your mind. Your brain, conditioned by millions of years of evolution for survival, has been programmed with a negativity bias. It is an expert at scanning the world for problems, threats, and lack. Now, with your sovereign consciousness, you will reprogram yourself to scan it for treasures. Your practice is the daily audit of your assets. The Treasure Hunter's Protocol. Every night, without exception, as the last sacred act before sleeping, you take your journal, and you become a treasure hunter of your own day. You look with deliberate attention for 3 to 5 specific blessings or gains from the day for which you feel genuinely grateful. The key is specificity. The subconscious mind ignores the generic. Look for the detail, because it is in the detail that the emotion resides. Do not write, my family. Write, I am grateful for the way the sunlight entered the window this morning and illuminated the dust motes dancing in the air, reminding me of the magic hidden in the present moment. Do not write a good meal. Write, I am grateful for the intense sweet flavor of the first sip of coffee this morning and for the feeling of warmth from the cup in my hands while the world was still silent. Do not write nature. Write, I am grateful for the unexpected smile from that stranger on the street, which made me feel connected to humanity for an instant. For each point you write, close your eyes for 60 seconds. Relive the moment. Don't just remember it. Feel it. Feel the gratitude in your body, in your heart, until a smile is drawn on your face. By doing this, you are performing an act of neurohacking. You are rewiring your reticular activating system. You are giving it a new command. Stop looking for dangers and start looking for miracles. And your brain, as the obedient servant it is, will begin to show you the abundance that has always been there, but which your old scarcity filter prevented you from seeing. Crucially, you fall asleep in the vibration of fullness, allowing your subconscious to marinate in that high frequency all night, working in that resonance while you sleep. The second practice, the gratitude burst, the frequency intervention. To change a state of negativity immediately, to short-circuit a loop of worry or frustration in the midst of the day's chaos, you use a high-power tool, a vibrational emergency intervention. The Whirlwind Protocol. When you feel overwhelmed by a low-frequency emotion, withdraw, even if only mentally, for 3 to 5 minutes. Set a timer, and during that time, without stopping, you verbalize out loud, if you can, or write down everything you are or could be grateful for as fast as you can, without filter or censorship. Thank you for this roof. Thank you for my hands. Thank you for this challenge that is making me stronger. Thank you for the air I breathe. Thank you for the water I drink. Thank you for the music. Thank you for my bed. Thank you for the lesson I am learning. Thank you for my eyes that see. Thank you for my ears that hear. The goal is not eloquence but momentum, speed. It is to create a whirlwind, a vortex of high-frequency energy that literally short-circuits the negative thought patterns. It is neuroscientifically impossible for the brain to maintain two strong, opposite emotional states at the same time. The energy of gratitude, generated with this intensity, literally expels and dissolves the lower frequency energy of fear and complaint. This burst of gratitude is like an injection of emotional capital. It elevates your vibrational state almost instantly and returns you to the seat of power. The third practice, anticipated gratitude, the golden harvest. Finally, we arrive at the most advanced and most potent strategy of the heart alchemist, the art of giving thanks for the prayer already answered, the act of harvesting on the plane of consciousness before the seed has sprouted on the plane of matter, the practice of anticipated gratitude. In your scientific prayer at the portal of sleep, you do not ask, you do not plead, you give thanks. You connect with the image and the feeling of your desire already fulfilled that you forged with your inner eye. And from that state of being, you formulate your decree, not as a petition, but as a thank you. Thank you, infinite intelligence, for the resounding success of this project. I feel immense gratitude for the abundance that now flows freely in my life. Thank you for the perfect health that is already my reality. I feel gratitude in every cell of my body for its vitality and healing intelligence. Thank you for the harmonious and loving relationship I am enjoying. I feel deep gratitude for the connection and joy we share. This act is the most powerful declaration of faith that exists. It is the final signature on the contract with the universe. It is the unmistakable signal that tells your subconscious, this is not a possibility. It is a done deal. Manifest it. Anticipated gratitude is the bridge that unites the now with the future. It is the act of living, feeling, and giving thanks for your new reality before your five senses can perceive it. It is the most powerful magnet, because by feeling gratitude, you are telling the universe, I trust you so completely that I am already celebrating the gift that I know is on its way. And the universe, feeling this absolute confidence, rushes to deliver the gift. The fourth practice, alchemical gratitude, blessing the obstacle. The final test of mastery in gratitude is the ability to feel it not only for the good, but also for the challenges. When you face an obstacle, a closed door, resist the urge to complain, and instead ask the alchemist's question, what is the hidden gift here? And you begin to give thanks for it even before seeing it. Thank you for this challenge, because I know it is making me stronger. Thank you for this closed door, because I know you are protecting me from a path that was not for me and redirecting me to a better one. Thank you for this lesson, however painful, because I know it holds the key to my next great expansion. This act of alchemical gratitude transmutes the energy of the obstacle, turning it from a wall into a stepping stone. Chapter 8. The Alchemy of Loss. Now we must address the most feared, most resisted, and ultimately most transformative experience of all. We must speak of loss. Loss is not an absence of the law, it is the law in its purest, most relentless, and most loving form. It is the universe acting as a master sculptor who, with a seemingly brutal hammer blow, shatters the formless marble block to release the magnificent statue held within. The pain you feel is real. Pain is the sensation of the marble being broken. But suffering, that prolonged agony, is born from your identification with the marble chips being discarded, with the form you believed you were. I understood this not in an ancient text, not in an esoteric teaching, but in the nakedness of my own breakdown. In Toulouse, after years of secretly teaching the truth this manuscript contains, I had been denounced for my ideas. I was judged by minds that could not comprehend. They expelled me from the city. They confiscated my writings, the work of a lifetime. They stripped me of my reputation, my name. In a single day I had lost everything that was not me. Everything I had built to be accepted, to be admired, to be protected. My identity as master, as philosopher, was shattered. That night I wanted to give up. My ego, my persona, screamed in pain and injustice. Why? It asked. After so much effort, so much devotion to the truth. I walked aimlessly until I reached an open field as a cold rain began to fall, as if the sky wept with me. I sat under a dry leafless tree, a perfect mirror of my own state, and I cried, not like a mystic, not like a philosopher. I cried like an abandoned child, beating the mud with my fists, emptying myself of all hope, of all strength. But right there, in that moment of total surrender, in the epicenter of the pain, when there was nothing left to fight for, something happened. Not outside of me, but within. A silent whisper, quieter than the rain, a certainty born from the very heart of the ruin. Now you are truly empty. Now you can truly be true. In that instant I understood. Life was not taking from me. It was freeing me. It was freeing me from the masks I had mistaken for my face. It was freeing me from the weight of an identity, that of Giordano the Master, that had become too small to contain the truth of my soul. I had become so attached to my creation that I had forgotten the Creator. Your soul yearns for infinite expansion, and if you have built a life, a career, a relationship, which, although secure and comfortable, has become too small for it, the soul in its infinite love for you will allow that structure to collapse, not to destroy you, but to give you the sacred space to build something greater, something truer, something more aligned with the immensity of who you really are. Loss is not a punishment. It is an initiation. It is the most serious and most loving invitation you will ever receive. The initiate in the legacy of the flame learns to see loss not as a tragic event, but as an alchemical process. It is the nigredo, the blackness, the fire that purifies the gold. It burns the false. The fire of loss burns everything that is not essential. It burns your attachments to people, places, outcomes. It burns your expectations, your need for control, your pride. Above all, it burns the parts of you that you built out of fear, not out of love. It burns the identity you created to be accepted, not to be free. It reveals the true. And once all the false, all the conditioned, all the borrowed has been reduced to ashes, what remains? What survives the fire is the only thing that was ever real. Your consciousness, your soul, your power to choose anew. Life does not take away who you are. It only takes away who you believed you were. And in that nakedness, in that sacred vulnerability, you find a strength that success and comfort could never have taught you. You discover that your worth does not reside in what you have, what you do, or what others think of you. You discover that your worth resides in the simple, unbreakable, and miraculous fact that you are. And from that indestructible foundation, from that bedrock of your own being, you can begin to build anew. But this time, you will not build a wooden shack to protect yourself from the storm. You will build a temple of light, because you have remembered that you are the light. The 3 practices. Transforming grief into growth. The experience of loss, in its raw form, is a descent into the dark night of the soul. You cannot bypass the grief. You cannot intellectualize your way out of the pain. The work of the alchemist is to go through the fire, not around it. The final stage of the initiation is the transmutation of grief. You learn to honor the tears of the character while celebrating the liberation of the soul. The first practice, the sacred pause, honoring the grief. When loss strikes, whether it is the end of a job, a relationship, or a physical ability, your first act must be one of sovereign surrender. You withdraw from the world and create a sacred space for the process. Stop the narrative. The ego will immediately try to create a story. This is unfair. I am a victim. It's their fault. I'll never recover. Your job is to gently interrupt this narrative. You say to your mind, I see you, old story, but for now, I only choose to feel. Locate the pain and breathe. Close your eyes and locate the physical sensation of the grief in your body. Is it a hollow ache in your stomach, a pressure in your chest, a tightness in your throat? Breathe into the pain. Breathe deeply and gently, sending your consciousness as a warm, unconditional embrace to the part of you that hurts. Do not try to change it. Just allow it to be felt. The depth of the feeling is the depth of the healing. The tears as cleansing. Allow the tears to flow. The tears are not a sign of weakness. They are the natural process of your body releasing the energy of the attachment. The tears are the river that carries the ashes away. Grief unexpressed is grief unhealed. The second practice, the inventory of freedom, the gift of the loss. Once the initial wave of pain has subsided and you are in a state of quiet acceptance, you perform the most radical act of the alchemist. You look for the gift, the freedom, the new space that the loss has created. The alchemist is question. Take your journal and ask the only question that matters. What has this loss freed me from? The loss of the relationship freed me from the constant need to please, the pressure to be someone I wasn't, the fear of being alone which is now being faced and healed. The loss of the job freed me from the limiting salary, the draining commute, the feeling of stagnation, the need to ask for permission to use my time. The loss of the old belief freed me from the heavy burden of judgment, the need to be right, the constant fear of failure. Celebrate the void. Look at the emptiness that remains. This emptiness is not a deficit. It is potential. Celebrate the space created. I now have time. I now have the freedom to choose my location. I now have an empty canvas. This simple shift in perspective transmutes the loss from a tragedy into an opportunity. The third practice, the Phoenix Decree, rebuilding from the essence. The old structure has burned down. Now you rebuild, not from the pieces of the old, but from the unshakable foundation of your core essence, the I am that survived the fire. Recall the core. You have already discovered your core essence in Chapter 5, the frequency of certainty. I am peace. I am abundance. I am love. The decree of the Phoenix. You declare your new reality not in spite of the loss, but because of the freedom the loss has given you. The old form of abundance is gone. Thank you for the freedom. I now decree and assume the new, expanded form of I am limitless prosperity. The old relationship is finished. Thank you for the liberation. I now decree and assume the new, higher frequency of I am unconditional love and sovereignty. You have used the fire of the past to forge the gold of the future. By embracing the loss, you have not only healed the pain, you have reclaimed the immense energy that was trapped in the old structure, and you have directed it toward the creation of the new. The alchemist has completed the transformation. Chapter 9. The Altar of Now. I lived most of my life infected by this disease, the disease of the there and the then. My mind was a perpetual battlefield between two ghostly armies. On one side, the army of my regrets, reliving in endless loops every mistake, every betrayal suffered, every word left unsaid, every lost opportunity. On the other, the army of my ambitions, planning the next defense, the next book, the next victory that would finally give me the peace I longed for. I lived in a state of temporal warfare. And in the middle of that war, the present was just an anxious truce, a fleeting and worthless instant that barely existed, a simple, precarious bridge between the crushing weight of the past and the uncertain fog of the future. And then, grace arrived. Not as a storm, but as a stillness. It was on a hill near Florence, in Tuscany. Spring was beginning to weave its timid green into the landscape. There was neither storm nor ecstasy, just a light, grey sky, the distant song of a bird, and the simple, constant rhythm of my own breathing. And for the first time in my life, perhaps since childhood, I was not looking for anything. I was not analyzing my past to find the root of my pain. I was not planning my future to secure my happiness. I was not trying to be spiritual, or raise my vibration, or manifest anything. I simply was there, present, listening to the bird's song, feeling the air on my skin, breathing, being. And it was then, in that total absence of searching, that peace found me. Not as a fleeting emotion that comes and goes, but as a recognition. It was as if the moment itself embraced me, as if everything I had sought so intensely for years, power, purpose, enlightenment, freedom, had always been right here, in this silent now, complete, absolutely sufficient. I understood the great illusion. The present is not a bridge to the future. The present is the destination. Every time my mind escaped to what should be, I moved away from what already was. And when, finally, exhausted from fighting, I stopped trying to get somewhere, life, in its magnificent and overwhelming totality, could reveal itself as it is. This is not a simple philosophy to feel good in a moment of crisis. It is the fundamental mechanics of creation. It is the most important law of the Codex. The past is an echo. It is a recording. It no longer has creative power of its own. Its only existence is as a memory file in your consciousness. It cannot do anything to you unless you give it your attention, unless you put the needle on the old record and bring it to the present, reliving its old vibrations. The future is a shadow, a potentiality. It does not exist, except as a thought in the now. Worrying about the future is like a painter who is scared of the shadow his own hand casts on the canvas. The shadow has no substance. It is only an absence of light. Change the position of your hand, your present thought, and the shadow changes instantly. The now is the single point of power. It is the only real moment. It is the nexus, the portal where your consciousness, the timeless, and the quantum field, the potential, meet. It is the only instant in which you can plant a new seed, emit a new frequency, choose a new reality. When you live in the past, you are using the energy of the now to water the seeds of old harvests, often of weeds and pain. When you live in the future, you are using the energy of the now to dream of seeds you never plant, wasting your power on fantasy. Only when you fully inhabit the now do you have the earth, the present moment, the seed, your intention, and the sun, your consciousness, in the same place at the same time. Only on the altar of now can the miracle of creation occur. The three practices. The anchor of presence. You have seen that your life is not a timeline that drags you along, but a point of consciousness that creates. But understanding this truth with the mind is only the first step. The true work of the initiate is to embody it. It is to learn to live on the altar, not just to visit it in moments of revelation. How do you abandon the mind's addiction to time travel? How do you return again and again to the only place where your power resides? You do not do it with force, you do not fight the mind, you simply, with gentle and persistent devotion, offer it an anchor. You teach it a new home. The following practices are not to get to the now, they are to realize that you are already here. The first practice, the anchor of being, returning to the temple. The mind is like a restless monkey, jumping from the branch of the past to that of the future. To calm it, you do not chase it, you give it a delicious fruit to focus on. Your body and your senses are that fruit. They are your anchor in the ocean of now. Your first practice is to return home to your body. The sensory anchor protocol. This is not a formal meditation that requires a special place. It is a practice to be used in the midst of life. When you find yourself lost in the labyrinth of your thoughts, in the temporal war of regret or anxiety, execute this simple anchoring protocol. Stop. Wherever you are, stop what you are doing. Pause. Feel your foundations. Bring all your attention to your body's contact points with the world. Feel your feet firmly planted on the ground. Feel the weight of your body in the chair. Feel the solidity, the gravity, the undeniable reality of your physical presence. Activate a sense. Now choose a sense and immerse yourself in it for 30 seconds with a child's curiosity. Sight. Do not look at your surroundings. See. Choose a nearby object, a leaf, a cup, your own hand, and observe it as if you had never seen it. Notice its colors, its textures, the way the light plays on its surface. Hearing, close your eyes and simply listen. Do not label the sounds. Do not judge them. Simply receive the vibrations, the hum of the air conditioner, the distant song of a bird, the murmur of a conversation. Become a universal ear. Touch. Feel the texture of your clothes on your skin, the temperature of the air, the smoothness of the table under your fingers. Breathe in the temple. Finally, take a single conscious breath, feeling how the air enters, fills your lungs, and leaves your body. Feel the miracle of life happening in you right now. You have returned. You have anchored the ship of your consciousness in the safe harbor of the present. The second practice. The alchemy of the moment, finding the gold in the lead. It is easy to be present on a hill in Tuscany, but how do you remain in the now when the now is painful? When the present contains an unexpected bill, a hurtful word, a physical pain? The untrained mind uses these experiences as a justification to escape to the past. This always happens to me, or the future. When will this end? The alchemist knows that these moments of lead are, in reality, the greatest opportunities for transmutation. Your practice is the alchemy of the present moment. Accept the lead. When an unpleasant moment arises, resist the urge to fight it. Apply the solvent of acceptance. This is what is now. Find the anchor in the pain. Instead of fleeing the emotion or the unpleasant physical sensation, bring your attention directly to it. Where do you feel the anxiety in your body? As a knot in your stomach. Do not get lost in the mental story about the anxiety. Simply feel the pure physical sensation. Breathe into it. By doing this, you stop resisting and begin to integrate it. Seek the hidden gold, the alchemical question. And in the midst of that acceptance, you ask yourself the alchemist's question. What is the gift in this right now? What can I be grateful for in this instant? You may not be able to be grateful for the problem itself, but there is always something. In the middle of a financial crisis, you can be grateful for your resilience, for the opportunity to become more creative, for the simple fact that you have a roof over your head at that moment. In the middle of a conflict, you can be grateful for the opportunity to practice patience, to learn to set a boundary, to see your own shadow reflected. This practice is not about positivizing the pain. It is about finding the point of power in the middle of it. It is the act of lighting a candle in the darkest room, and often that small flame of gratitude is enough to start dissolving the darkness from within. The third practice, create from the altar, the sowing in the now. Finally, once you have learned to inhabit the now, you turn it into your creation workshop. You no longer visualize a distant future. You bring the future into the vibration of the now. Enter the altar. Through your sensory anchor, enter a state of presence. Invoke the future. Instead of thinking about your desire, you ask yourself, how would I feel right now if my desire were already a fact? Embody the feeling, and you generate that feeling in your body in the present moment. Not the image, but the feeling, the relief, the gratitude, the peace, the joy. Live from the feeling, and you carry that feeling with you into the next action you take, however mundane. You wash the dishes with the feeling of abundance. You answer an email with the feeling of love. You walk down the street with the feeling of radiant health. You are not attracting a future. You are embodying a future now. You are planting the seed of your new reality in the only fertile ground that exists, the present moment. You are informing the quantum field, in the only time it understands, that the new reality has already begun. Chapter 10. The Living Flame. Throughout this entire journey, you have been the student, the initiate, the one learning about the flame. You have observed it, studied its nature, learned to shield it from the winds of doubt and to stoke it with the fire of your heart. But the goal of the initiation was never to turn you into a guardian of the flame. The goal was for you to realize that you are the flame. I understood this too late, or perhaps just in time, when I found myself in the final silence of my cell in Rome, awaiting the sentence I already knew, stripped of my books, my words, my audience, my reputation, of everything I thought I was. I faced the naked truth. It was not enough to have spoken of the infinite. It was not enough to have written about the unity of the cosmos. It was not enough to have studied the stars, the souls, the subtle energies. The only thing that accompanied me in that darkness, the only possession that could not be taken from me, was not what I knew, but who I had become. Because in the end, in the hour of truth, the only truth that matters, the only one that has the power to light up the darkest cell, is not the one you hold in your mind. It is the one that vibrates in your being. Knowledge is a description of the fire. Wisdom is the fire itself, the final mastery, the one that transcends all manuals and all teachings, occurs when you stop being a student of power and become an embodiment of it. You stop practicing gratitude. You become the vibration of gratitude. You stop visualizing peace. You become the field of peace that calms the storm around you. You stop affirming your power. Your simple presence becomes the most potent affirmation. Knowledge is the map. Embodiment is the territory. And the time has come for you to stop studying the map and start being the territory. When you become the living flame, your relationship with the world changes completely. You stop being a messenger and become the message. You no longer try to convince anyone with your words, your arguments, your theories. Your presence becomes your argument. People will not be inspired by what you say about peace. They will feel peaceful in your company, because your field of coherence will calm their nervous system by simple resonance. They will not learn about unconditional love from your theories. They will feel unconditional love in your gaze, a gaze that does not judge but simply sees. Your life ceases to be a lesson you impart and becomes a transmission you radiate. You effortlessly radiate the frequency of the truth you have embodied. And those who are ready to awaken, those whose own inner flames are seeking a spark, will be inexplicably drawn to your light like moths to the flame. Not because you call them, not because you convince them, but because they resonate. You are not a teacher who teaches. You are a bonfire that warms and illuminates all who approach it. This is the highest service. It is not a doing. It is a being. Imagine a man who has been entrusted with the sacred mission of carrying a lit torch through a dark valley to illuminate a village in the distance. At first, in his youth, he is obsessed with the torch itself. He becomes an expert in torch theory. He studies the composition of the wax, the physics of combustion, the history of the great torches of the past. He accumulates immense knowledge about fire, but he has not begun his journey. He is a scholar of fire, not a carrier of fire. Then one day he lights his torch and begins his journey, and his focus changes. Now he is obsessed with protecting the flame. He builds elaborate barriers against the wind. He hides under trees when rain threatens. His journey is slow, anxious, exhausting. He is so focused on not losing the fire that he barely moves forward. Every gust of wind is a threat. Every drop of rain a sign of disaster. He lives in a state of contraction, of fear. But one night, exhausted by his own vigilance, he trips over a root in the darkness and falls. The torch flies from his hand, lands in a puddle, and is extinguished with a final hiss. He finds himself in total darkness in the mud, alone. Despair floods him. He has failed. His life's mission has been extinguished in an instant, and in that darkness, in that total loss for the first time, he does not look at the extinguished torch. He looks inward, and in the depths of his own being, he sees a small spark, an ember that had never gone out, the fire he feared losing so much, and that had always been burning on the altar of his own heart. In that instant of recognition, everything changes. He gets up. He's no longer a torch carrier. He is the torch. He stands tall, and the flame of his own being, fed by his realization, grows and expands, illuminating the path with a clarity and warmth that the small wax torch could never have matched. He no longer fears the wind. He knows his inner fire cannot be extinguished by any external force. He no longer fears the darkness. He knows he is the source of the light. And he walks, not with the anxiety of the protector, but with the serene authority of the flame itself. And seeing him walk, the inhabitants of the valley do not see a man with a torch. They see a man on fire. They see the embodiment of the fire. And that vision awakens them in a way that 1,000 lessons about fire could never have done. You have reached that point. You have studied the fire. You have learned to protect it. Now the final initiation asks you to let go of the torch and recognize that you are the fire. The 3 inner questions transcended. The first inner question, internalized. Is this my truth or an echo? The initiate, as you learned, must ask this question consciously to unmask inherited voices. The master, the living flame, no longer needs to ask. Their very being has become a tuning fork of truth. When a thought or belief that is not theirs tries to enter their field, they do not have to analyze its origin. They simply feel the dissonance. It is like a master musician who, without looking at the score, can detect a single off-key note in the middle of an orchestra. The thought of fear, of limitation, of doubt no longer resonates with their being. It is as foreign to their frequency as a word in a language they do not speak. Their system, by default, no longer recognizes it as own. There is no need to interrogate the ghost, because in the constant light of their being, the ghost cannot even form. The second inner question, internalized. Does this voice expand me or contract me? The initiate uses their body as a compass, feeling the contraction of fear and the expansion of truth. The master is the compass. Their natural state is expansion. Therefore, any thought, any opportunity, any relationship that generates the slightest contraction in their system is instantly detected, not as a threat but as a simple signal of misalignment. It is like a river that, upon encountering a rock, does not stop to analyze it. It simply flows around it effortlessly. The master no longer deliberates about which path to take. Their entire being flows by nature toward the greatest expansion, the greatest joy, the greatest life. Contraction is no longer a viable option, in the same way that a tree does not consider growing downward, toward the darkness of the earth. The third inner question internalized. Would I choose this voice if I had no fear? The initiate asks this question to transcend fear. The master lives in the answer. Having embraced their shadow, having healed their wounds, having remembered their nature as eternal consciousness, fear has lost its fundamental power over them. The fear of death, of failure, of judgment are echoes of a valley they have long since left behind. Therefore, their choices are no longer based on a calculation of risk and safety. They are based on a single question. What does my soul most yearn to express now? Their actions are not a movement to run from fear, but a movement to run toward beauty. They are not fleeing the darkness. They are dancing toward the light. The initiate uses the questions to find the path. The master has become the path. So what is the daily life of this living flame like? It is a life of astonishing simplicity and power. Lives from the cause. The master has so deeply integrated the law of the mirror that they no longer react to the world. They know that they are the cause. If a dissonance appears in the mirror of their reality, they do not try to fix the reflection. They turn inward and tune their own note. Acts from silence. Their most powerful actions are not born from frenetic planning, but from receptive stillness. They await the inspired impulse, the wave of the universe, and ride it with total confidence and effortless joy. Loves unconditionally. Seeing the spark of the same divine flame in all beings, judgment becomes impossible. Love ceases to be a selective emotion and becomes their natural state of perception. And this state of being has an effect on the world that is infinitely more potent than any teaching. Your life ceases to be a search and becomes a lighthouse. Your peace becomes a permission for others to find their own peace. Your freedom becomes an inspiration for others to break their own chains. You do not have to save the world. You only have to embody your own truth. And by doing so, you become the light that effortlessly illuminates the path for all those who are ready to see. You have completed the journey through this manuscript. You have followed the steps of the pilgrim, the alchemist, the architect. You have learned the laws and practiced the rituals. But the final message, the legacy of this flame, is to forget the messenger and recognize the message in your own heart. This knowledge was not given to you so that you would become a follower of my words, but so that you would become a master of your own. We have reached the end of the verses. Together we have walked through the dark night of the mirror, learned to silence the inherited voices, and embraced the shadow to reclaim our power. We have remained in the womb of the void and learned to emanate from the frequency of certainty, dismantling our fear of receiving. We have learned to use gratitude as a cause, to transmute loss into alchemy, and to find all the power of the universe on the sacred altar of the now. And finally, we have arrived at the culminating revelation that the goal was never to seek the flame, but to become it. You have completed the journey, you have traveled through each of the revelations, you have held the torch. But here in the final silence lies the last truth. This audiobook, this voice, this legacy were never the source of your fire. They were only a reminder, an echo across time, designed to awaken the flame that has always burned at the center of your being. The knowledge is no longer a forbidden secret because now it lives in you. The practices are no longer necessary because your own life has become the practice. You are no longer the student learning about power. You are the power itself, learning about itself through your experience. The learning journey is over. Your life as a living flame begins now. Your question every morning is no longer, what must I do to find the light? But, how do I choose to be the light today? Walk through the world, not as someone who has learned a secret, but as someone who is a living secret. May your peace be the mystery that calms the storms of others. May your certainty be the enigma that dissolves their doubts. May your love be the inexplicable fire that warms cold hearts. Your life becomes the legacy. If this legacy has ignited the flame in your soul and illuminated your path, we invite you to share its light. Subscribe to our channel, Path of Knowledge, for more wisdom that ignites the spirit. Like this video as a declaration that you have accepted your own flame. Share this torch with someone who may be walking in the darkness. Thank you for your time, for your courage, and for the brave decision to stop searching for the fire and at last to become it. The flame has passed from our hands to yours, and now you will know what to do with it.